Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me on another conversation with your host, Sandy Bastien. And today I have an amazing guest with me, Cheryl Wilson. Cheryl, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself, tell them who you are and what you do.
All right. Well, thank you, Sandy, for inviting me to your show. I really appreciate it. We've known each other for a few years, and it seems like when we first met, we just connected immediately. So I'm really grateful and really thankful for that. But yeah, my name is Cheryl Wilson, and I basically operate an online business called All Around E-Bikes, where I sell electric bicycles, electric tricycles, traditional bikes, and accessories for bikes. And what's interesting, I started that business around 2019, but I've actually been around in the online space for many, many years, actually a couple decades. Started long time ago selling computers, and then I have a background in marketing. So when I learned about the internet, it was just like a natural fit for me. And I basically at that time learned how to do search engine optimization and also website design. So with that, I started consulting and basically teaching companies how to set up a web presence and so forth. But that's the short version of a little bit about my background.
Nice. Thank you so much for sharing that, Cheryl. And I just want to give our audience some background on how we met. I know you talked about how we met a couple of years ago, but Cheryl and I met actually in one of the Facebook groups that I'm a part of, and Cheryl's also a part of. And I think I had posted a question. Maybe it was a tech question, but Cheryl was so generous to answer the question. And from there, we became accountability partners. And I want to talk to our audience about how important that is as well, because Cheryl and I, we talk every week as much as we can. Obviously, life happens, but for the last almost, what is it, almost 3 years, Cheryl?
Definitely at least 3 years.
Oh my God, it happens. It feels like yesterday, but it's been 3 years. And we have been, talking to each other about our businesses and how we can support each other in growing our businesses. And I want to say one thing about what Cheryl does, her tech side, is that she has really helped me see certain things that I couldn't see on my website. Whenever it has to do with technology, I have a conversation with Cheryl on our weekly accountability conversations. She makes me see things that I don't normally or can see. And the reason why is because Cheryl has an eye for tech stuff. So Cheryl, tell us a little bit about how you started this journey as you call yourself, was it Chevy?
Sherry Savvy. Yeah.
Chevy, sorry.
Yeah.
Sherry Savvy.
Yeah.
And I know with a lot of people when they're starting their businesses, one of the things that they're obviously wanting to have is a website, right? And some people think that just putting up a website and maybe putting up a product, that's they're ready to go. But you have a special eye to see certain things when you're looking at websites. And I want you to talk to people about some of the things that you want to make sure if you're wanting to sell your product, you have a website you launch maybe on Shopify or all these other platforms. What are some of the most important things that you would recommend people have on their site when they start?
Wow. Well, that's great, Sandy. Thank you for asking that. So I think, for me, because I have a background in marketing and I have this background in tech, and again, I started in sales. And when I got out of sales, I wanted to move to tech because I wanted to be able to communicate technical concepts to customers. That was my whole goal from going from a sales rep to a software support person. It was like, how can I communicate to customers, to business owners, technical concepts? So that was really my motivation. So I kind of carried that, over the years. So when I think about websites, one of the first things I think about is like, well, first of all, you want to define your audience. Who are you creating this website for? A lot of times people get caught up into what they like, and they get caught up into designs that they like and so forth. And that's really the wrong approach. You really have to be thinking about, okay, well, who's my audience and what do they need? And how can I communicate my products and my concepts in a way that will help them understand? So that's one of the first things. The next thing I would like to think about, what I think about when I'm about to design a website for a client, I'm looking at my competitors. I really want to know, what are they up to? Do I see consistent patterns? Do I see consistent themes? I'm looking for things that really stand out. And then I'm going to also look at something called search engine optimization, which is basically the concept of making your web copy, your website content easy to follow, easy for search engines to find it easily and understand what you sell, and also for humans to find it and understand what you sell. So I'm going to look at the competitors to see, well, who's ranking on the top of Google. Now things are slowly changing because we have AI right now, so that's another whole animal. But traditionally speaking, you would go to Google. Most of us would go to Google and we would search. So I'm going to look at my competitors to make sure, hey, who's on top and what are they doing? So those are some of the top things that I look at. And then there's also the concept of navigation. Navigation meaning how do you move around on a website? And we think about, like, when I look at a website, the first thing I'm going to look for is something called a menu, and we all do. But maybe business people don't think about it like that. But me being on the tech side, I understand that you have to have a menu in order to find the links. In order for people to find the thing that they want, we've got to direct them there. So I'm looking for typically a top navigation menu and a footer. That's usually at the very bottom of the page. And then I'm looking for a logo. And then I'm also looking for a phone number, and I'm looking for an address. Those are some real basic things that I look at in addition to the products. And, I want to find good descriptions about the products, but that's kind of like a mouthful, Sandy. But when I look at a website, it's definitely in my head, I'm looking for these things. For me are automatic. It's
right.
Like, no, if I don't see a top nav, I'm like, okay, well, maybe the person who designed this, maybe they're new. If I don't see a footer, I'm like, okay, I'm not sure why there's not a footer there. But these are really, for me and for most anybody in the business, I'd say pretty basic concepts.
Yeah. So you talked about competitors. When you say competitors, are you talking about your customer that you're doing the website for?
No. No, actually, yeah. Thanks for asking that. I'm actually talking about, like, say, for example, I sell electric bicycles. When I first started my website, it was around 2019. One of the first things I did before I even got a domain name and things like that, I started looking at other sites that sell electric bicycles. So those are the competition.
Okay. So you're talking about your particular website.
Yes.
Okay, so when it comes to, like, for a customer, let's say I come to you and I say, and I'll just go back to when I first started doing this whole online business thing. We'll talk about the bottles. So when I first had my idea, I didn't have the product yet, right? I wanted to have a website because obviously everyone was, telling you, you need to have a website, you think you need all these different things. So if a person doesn't necessarily have a product to sell yet, but yet they want to have a website because they want to build community or they want a way for people to see what they're doing, what are some of the things you think they should have on the site, even though they may not have the product yet?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really got to give that one some thought, because typically I'm going to be designing a website around, a specific concept or a specific product. But let's say, so the question is if they have an idea in mind, but they don't really have an end product, right?
Right.
You want to build community. So I think what I would do is just be really transparent and state that and talk about what their vision is. Their vision is they want to do something. They're not quite sure yet. So that might be how I would approach it, because you really do have to have, again, a central theme and again, the audience. So I'd go back to the goal too. Like, what will be the goal and the purpose of having this website? If it's for engagement, then you really have got to start by talking about, you kind of like your purpose and what your thoughts are.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
That's what I was thinking as well. The reason why I asked that question is because I meet a lot of people who say, yeah, I have this idea, but I'm not ready to launch it yet. I'm not ready to, the product is being created still, right? Or they're thinking about what they want to sell, but they know who they want to sell to. Like you talked about knowing who you're talking to, who you're wanting to reach. They know that, but they just don't have anything to offer. And I think the reason why I'm talking to you about this question is to get to the blogging. Like, I know we talked about how sometimes, people can search your name up or maybe your product up or something, and they're able to find you on a Google. Because everyone who wants to find something, I think the first thing they probably do is to go onto Google and see who this person is and what this person does. How can someone use those tools to help them, grow their community without yet having the product on their site yet?
Got it. Well, again, it kind of, we start with that goal and like their purpose. So let's say if I would imagine they have a niche in mind, because, if they're wanting to build a product, then they've got to have some idea of what product that they want to build. So I would probably at that point start with something called keyword research. And you can do that by using free tools. There's keywords everywhere. I think there's a small fee for credits. You could actually open up a Google Ads account, which is absolutely free. And then inside Google Ads, there is the keyword research tool. So you can do a lot of research for free. But I would drop in some of the ideas, the keywords, to get an idea of search volume. Because if a keyword has 1,000 searches a month, that's one thing. If the keyword or the keyword phrase has 20,000 searches a month, that's another thing. typically the more search volume that's out there, it may be a little bit more competitive. So you may have to like choose keywords that have a little bit less search volume so that your pages can rank in Google. Because essentially a brand new website has no authority in Google. Meaning,
Mhm.
you just started, it's day one. Google doesn't know you. Google is concerned about a couple of things. One, about making sure that it provides authentic, trustworthy data.
Mhm.
So if your website is a day old and another website is 3 years old, which keyword is going to rank? Which site's going to have the most credibility? It's going to be the one that's got, the longest history, and probably something called backlinks as well. A lot of concepts here that I could unpack, but one would be, again, it's always about research and knowing your audience. Do some keyword research, and then choose keywords that you could potentially rank for. Now, in the beginning, you may not rank, but
Mhm.
eventually you could rank when you have more domain authority and having more backlinks. Again, there's a lot of details behind that as well.
I mean, if you can, just like a basic definition of what keywords are and the backlink, that would help.
Yeah, sure. So keywords are just they're just simply basically words that we would use to find something. So I'm going to just use a really simple example. Let's say you needed to buy a shirt for let's say you're going to a wedding and you wanted to buy a shirt. Let's say it's a men's shirt. So you're going to type in maybe men's shirt, right? And maybe so men's shirt, that's a keyword, right? But that's pretty broad. So maybe you're going to give Google or any search engine bot a little bit more information. So maybe you're going to say something like men's shirt for a wedding. And then
Mhm.
maybe Google now is going to return more results back. It's going to return results back that maybe would include the word like dress shirt or dress shirt for wedding or formal shirt. It's going to basically return results that have more information related to your basic keyword. I'm just trying to think another example that we used to use back in the day. I'll use this example of Nike tennis shoes. So let's say you're looking for tennis shoes. All right, well, tennis shoes is super broad. Are you looking for Skechers? Are you looking for Nike? Are you looking for Puma, Adidas, etc.? Well, the search engine wouldn't know, right? Because you just said you're looking for tennis shoes. So you want to give it a little bit, you want to give it more keyword qualifiers. So now you might say, I'm looking for a Nike, or you might even say, I'm looking for a Nike shoe made in 2022, and then the more information you get, which is basically keywords, helps to inform the search engine. And then, so let's say if you had a website selling tennis shoes, obviously it would be good for you to write your product descriptions with detail. So you might say Nike tennis shoe made in 2022. There may be a specific name for that shoe. And that would allow your page to potentially match when the searcher uses those keywords.
Cheryl, I know a lot of people are just like me. As you're talking, I know a little bit more about this because I talk to you a lot
Uh-huh.
and I ask you questions. However, if someone is, let's say, because I think everyone, if you have a business, I don't know if you can survive without having a website. Is that right?
I mean, you nowadays, a website is key, but of course there are different forms of contact now. So there's many different social platforms. And so it also kind of depends on the generation, again, your target audience, because some people, some generations are looking strictly at social media. They're like all about Instagram, and some are all about TikTok. Some are going to be about Google.
Hmm.
And within Google, there's, your browser, which the term browser means how you access the web. There's different browsers. There's Chrome, then there's Microsoft Edge, and there's Firefox, and there's browsers for the Apple computer as well. So the point being is some people who are going to go out to Google may not even get Google, because if they're on a desktop and they're using Bing, which is like the default browser, the Microsoft browser, they're going to see Bing a different search engine. So my point being is I don't have one specific way, again, because it's kind of like your audience. Some people are going to be out there strictly on Facebook. Some are going to be primarily on Instagram. Some are going to favor TikTok. So again,
Hmm.
this is where knowing your target audience is you can't get around that. You got to know your
Yeah.
target audience, and you got to be thinking about keywords that your target audience might use to find the thing that you're selling or the concept that you want to promote. But yeah, having a website, in my opinion, is still pretty basic.
Right.
It's a good thing to have.
As you're talking, what I'm hearing you saying is like when you're talking about knowing your audience, it's also knowing how they shop. What platforms are they using to buy stuff? So you're right. A lot of the younger folks now, they're using TikTok, they're using Instagram. And once those ads come up and it's something that they are interested in, they just click on it and they're able to purchase whatever it is that they're doing. Definitely has a lot to do with mindset. I think for me, I'm still on, okay, well, if I'm going to buy a product, let me go onto this website or let me go onto Amazon. But there's just so many different ways today where people purchase. It doesn't necessarily have to be directly from their website. So that's a very important point. And of course, you have to know the dynamics, like, what is it that your particular audience is, what way are they using to shop in order for you to position yourself to find them?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it definitely has a lot to do with, again, audience. And then I didn't even mention Pinterest, which is a platform that I'm not super familiar with, but I'm actually doing some work for a client right now. And they actually got banned on Google and they got banned on Bing. Now, this happened due to some work from a previous consultant that they worked with, but nevertheless, they're currently banned on both platforms. And they haven't done anything wrong necessarily, but for whatever reason, they got banned. So it's like, this person is really questioning me. So should I give up? Should I call it quits? And the answer there is no. Now, granted, Google is going to be probably one of the largest platforms, and you're going to get a lot of traffic from Google, and you're going to get some traffic from Bing as well. But if you're not on those two platforms and you have an e-commerce store selling a physical product, there's still other ways to reach your audience. And so we began to, I actually began to look at other options for them. And I found that Pinterest for this particular client is going to be a pretty good avenue based upon the research that I found. So again, they still have a website. It won't be on the paid platforms for Google or Bing. It will still be in the organic listings. Again, back to the SEO, the free search, but they'll be able to get traffic from Pinterest, which will ultimately lead them to their website where the customer could check out, and they can run ads on Pinterest as well.
What you're saying to me has opened my eyes in so many ways as we're talking about all these things, because I know that was the first thing I did. Like, okay, I need a website. And it's great. I think it's good to have a website. Specifically, if you're trying to build a brand, make sure you have that domain, that you have that domain in the event that someone tries to copy you or whatever, just have it. But as you're talking, I feel like these social media platforms, they kind of have everything that you need. They have the audience, they have the ads, and they have the outlet for you to sell, right? So if you're focusing, as you're talking about Pinterest, I'm like, wait a minute, if someone knows, that your target audience spends a lot of time on Pinterest, you can have your product there, you can do your ads there, you can have everything there. You can even create social posts on there, right? Like you can write articles on there. Like there's a lot of things you can do and not have to worry about driving people to your website.
Yeah, that's a good point, Sandy. That is a good point. But one thing that I learned in doing the research, it's about who owns the customer's data. So if I'm on Pinterest, and let's say I get all my traffic from Pinterest and I drive it to my website, that's great. What happens if Pinterest shuts down or it gets bought or they decide they're no longer a viable source? Now, where are those leads? How am I going to get leads?
Yeah.
Again, with TikTok, we all know what happened at the beginning of the year. There was this risk of TikTok getting shut down. So people are, they had a lot of contacts and connections on TikTok. So then they're thinking about other platforms. So that's the one good thing about the website. If you own the website and you drive traffic to your website, I mean, you own that customer data, and you have the ability to establish a relationship with them via email too. So email marketing is not dead. It's definitely, you want to get that customer's email address. So again, you could build that relationship. You could continue to be in communication with them, regardless of what a platform sent the traffic to your website.
Yeah.
I think that's really critical and important to know that.
This is so good because as I was telling you this, I didn't think about that part. You're right. Because if you have these platforms and that's the only place you're focused on, you're not really collecting email addresses, you're not staying connected with your customers other ways, that's right. At any time they shut down, you're disconnected, right?
Yeah.
So I think that it's important as you're talking, it's important because I feel like there's so many different ways and sometimes it gets overwhelming. Like you have Facebook, you have Instagram, and some of them are like the same now. You could even sell now on WhatsApp, I think, right? You could do things on WhatsApp. Just so many ways and people get so overwhelmed with trying to figure out every single way to sell or to reach their customers that you almost want to give up because it's like you don't know what really is working for you because you haven't focused on one thing. Tell us a little bit about how important it is to maybe narrow things down when you initially start, doing this, email marketing or just selling your product online? Tell us how you can simplify it. That way it could be more encouraging to do as opposed to being discouraged.
Yeah, that's great. And thanks for asking that question. So I'll just share my story. So it was in 2019 when I started my online store all around e-bikes. I basically took a course and learned how to get the store set up. So at that point, I had already been in the tech field for like over 15 years. So I was comfortable with the technology. I hadn't used Shopify before. So I had used other e-commerce platforms, but I never used Shopify. So I was able to basically do the research to decide what niche I wanted to get into, and then I built my store on Shopify. And I was advised at that time just to start with one advertising platform, and so for me it was Google Shopping. So when I first started my store, I had my Shopify store set up, and Shopify is a platform that allows you to create an e-commerce store, and you basically are going to use templates or themes. They're kind of like, it's just like a pattern you would lay on top of a website, if you will.
Yeah.
So I just picked my theme. I uploaded my products. I had to write, create the product descriptions and so forth, of which for the most part, I got those from my suppliers. And then of course I had to have a logo and all like the basic stuff. And then I went ahead and I got approved to be on the Google Shopping Network, which is one of the advertising platforms that Google offers. They offer text ads, video ads, there's YouTube, which Google owns. And then they also offer display ads. But mine was strictly shopping ads, which is basically, essentially, within a store, you have what we call a product feed. And that's just a list of all your products. And so that product feed is connected to the Google Shopping Network. And the Google Shopping Network is a part of the Google network, if you will. Mm-hmm. If you go to your website and you're on google.com, if you notice, there's a list of links, and one of them starts with all. And that's like when you plug in a keyword, you're going to get back data or results. And when all is selected, that means that Google will return data from all the platforms, all of its networks. If you click shopping, you'll get just the shopping listings. And that would be products, strictly products. So the point being is I focus on one network, and that was just strictly Google Shopping. And then I think a few months went by. It could have even been a year. I don't recall right now. I went to the Bing, which was a Microsoft ad network. Mm-hmm. Now I did set up Facebook in the first month or two. I think I had Facebook and Instagram, but honestly, I posted like 2 or 3 things just so that I could say I had a presence. Mm-hmm. But I didn't work that at all, because initially you really just want to focus on 1, maybe 2 platforms, and then get to know those. Mm-hmm. See how your product performs, see how the market responds, and then you could go to other platforms.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that for me, even when I see a product and then they have a listing of all the different ways you can purchase it, I automatically give up, because I'm like, you just gave me too many options. Right. So you have to make it easy for the customer, and basically that's what I hear you saying. Like, make it easy for you, to show up, when you have to, but also make it easy for the customer that you're trying to reach.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to be able to really, again, know how well your ads are working on a given platform. And, these platforms change all the time. And they have algorithms, they have these mathematical formulas. They're pulling in data and they're understanding how buyers respond and how advertisers respond. And their goal is to make money. Yeah. So they're always changing the rules. So just because you launch on Google in January, don't think it's the same Google 12 months later, because it's not.
Constantly changing. Yeah, definitely. That's a good point as well. Well, Cheryl, I want to flip this over to now, we're talking directly, reaching the consumer, reaching the customer online. But I know that you also do government contracting. And I want you to talk to us a little bit about how your presence online has opened opportunities for you to work with the government, like in the ways that you have.
Okay, sure. Well, to be honest with you, Sandy, I think really it was just a blessing from the Most High, because I started out with my store, and then about a year later, I started taking these courses. They were free courses that were offered by various agencies, and I'm like, if you check your state, you're going to find free agencies that offer government contracting courses. And at the time, I think it was called Apex, or that's what it's called today. But so I did. So I signed up. I took these free webinars, and they were helpful on the one hand because they talked about the specifics of getting into government contracting, and they also taught new business owners how to set up a business. Well, my business at that point had been around for about a year and a half, so I had all that basic stuff done. Now, these webinars had a tendency to focus a lot on certification, and they would go deep into all these different types of certification. You could be women-owned. Back then, you could be minority business owned. You could be service disabled, veteran owned.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of detail. And honestly, some of that stuff was like over my head. I didn't really fully understand it. And the emphasis was on certification to the point to where I thought, okay, this looks like a lot of work. And honestly, I didn't pursue it. I was like, well, maybe I'll get woman certified at some point, but I just dropped it.
Yeah.
Went on about my business, kept working my business. And then maybe 6 months later, I'd take another course because in the back of my mind, I thought it makes sense to do government contracting, but it looks like it's going to be super tedious. And it looks like getting certified was going to take forever. But then they also talked about this document called a capability statement. And it just wasn't clear to me what I needed to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of pushed it in the back of my head. All right. So then one day, okay, by the way, I'd already mentioned that my website had been on the Google Shopping Network.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd also did some what I call search engine optimization. So my website, I had a presence online, which is good because I wanted people to be able to find me, right? So one day I get this email and it's from someone with a Navy.mil email address. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. I thought that was interesting. But, I also get a lot of spam like everybody else. We get these spammy emails that say things like, I want to buy 20 units of, and usually it's not even 20. It's like, I want to buy 50 units of this particular thing. And I'm like, yeah, right. And I would look at the email address. It'd be some weird email address from by a .gmail extension.
Mm-hmm.
I go Google the first part to see if the company was even real, and they never have a website. So I thought, okay, this is fake. So when I saw the email from the Navy.mil person, I was a little skeptical. And he asked for an electric tricycle, but he wanted some parts to be removed, and he needed the thing to have a particular certification. So I thought it was pretty interesting. And I looked at the email, and about 15 minutes later, I responded, and I kind of confirmed. I said, hey, so you want this electric tricycle, you want these parts removed, and you needed a particular certification. He said, yeah. And it's so funny because I was still kind of in that skeptical mindset at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically said, well, how many do you want? And what's your budget? To me, it was like, wow, this was an inappropriate way to respond, but that's the way I responded. And he was really generous. He responded back right away. And he said, well, we don't know how many we want yet. We're still trying to figure that out. And he said, don't worry about the budget. And I thought, okay, great. So then I thought, well, I should give this guy a call. So I decided to give him a call, and we talked on the phone. He was real receptive of the conversation. And at that point, I just needed to kind of reiterate to find out what his requirements were. So what I did at that point, I thought, okay, I had two vendors. I had one vendor that I had a relationship with for a while, or at least a couple of years, and I sold their tricycles. And I had another vendor which was fairly new, and I thought, well, let me go ahead and check out this new vendor. The new vendor, they were located, I think, up in Michigan. Mm-hmm. So I thought, well, let me give them a shot. So I reached out to them, I emailed them, and they said, yeah, we do have certification. It was something called a CE certification, and the other vendor said they had a certification called a UL. I think it's UL listed. So I went back to the Navy contact, and he said, well, no, we can't use CE. It has to be UL. Mm-hmm. So what happened was I basically, at that point, I just decided to work with my original vendor, the primary vendor. And that was really a blessing in disguise because the vendor that I thought I wanted to work with, the new vendor, they went out of business in about a year. Within a year, 18 months, they were gone, like they were just no longer around.
Wow.
So I'm with my vendor, and I tell them, I'm like, I have to have screenshots showing that this item is UL listed, it's certified. And so I basically put a lot of documentation together, sent it back to my contact. He looked at it, and all this happened around mid-February. And mind you, I wasn't on SAM.gov. So it's like end of February, this all happened around mid-January. Yeah, mid-January. So by the beginning of February, he decided to place an order with me. He actually told me, he says, in order for us to place the order, he said, you have to be on SAM.gov. And so, mind you, remember, I had taken those courses before, but I didn't really take any action in terms of going to the next step, which was SAM.gov. You have to be registered on SAM.gov if you want to do business with the federal government. That's just a basic requirement. So I went ahead and got registered, and thankfully, I was able to get my cage code which is a code that you get from SAM.gov, and a UEI number. So those two things came once I got registered, and thankfully it happened within a couple of weeks. So I literally had my first order with the Navy for 2 of these tricycles within, it was like less than a month of the initial conversation, which was truly a blessing because, again, it literally was dropped in my lap. So all this is going on. The items get shipped to the Navy, and even though I had given the supplier specific, instructions to remove some parts, they didn't do it. I was very fortunate though, because my contact, he got the items. He was pretty cool about it. He's like, well, we got them, but this component is still on the item and I can't find the instructions. So there were some little challenges in there, but I was able to work through it by just emailing him and talking to him. And these trikes were pretty expensive. I mean, they're almost $3,000 and they're very expensive to ship. I mean, shipping on one, it's going to cost a couple $100s. And so in this case, it was a couple trikes and we couldn't ship it back. So we had to basically work through it. So thankfully we were able to work through the whole process and everything got done. So now it's like early March and I'm getting inquiries from the Navy for more trikes and I'm filling out these bids. Actually, what happens is they send out something called a solicitation. So it's a form that you have to fill out. I fill out the form, I submit the bid, and then, months go by, I don't hear anything from anybody. Now, my supplier, my sales rep over there, they're excited. They're like, oh, call them up, see if you can get them to order more products. Tell them we'll paint the trikes in the color that they want. And I'm like, well, it doesn't really work like that. And plus, I'm getting these inquiries from different people, right? So it's not like I'm getting an inquiry from one person. There's something called a contracting officer in this whole process. But I really never get an inquiry from a contracting officer. I get inquiries from supply techs and different titles. So what I did is I basically put a spreadsheet together and I started to track, so I can get an idea of, who's reaching out to me and so forth. So I basically try to track the conversations. Well, thankfully, I know this is kind of long and sorry for it, but
it's okay.
So now it's June and you wouldn't believe this, Sandy, but between June of 2022 and December of 2022, I got 18 orders from the Navy.
Wow.
My very first order came in, as I mentioned, back in February, and they actually paid for it up front. I got the phone call for the first order. They gave me a credit card. They paid for it out the door. What a blessing, man. That was great. Well, in June, I started getting orders. They paid for one up front, but for the most part, the rest of the orders came by way of some of them they paid with credit card after I delivered and after they inspected. And then others came by way of another system called WAF, is WAWF. And that's a system where you log on, you set up a profile, and you go through several steps to get paid. You submit an invoice, and there's a lot of checks and balances in there. So the payment was a little bit slower with those. But I'll be honest, and I'll tell you the truth. One of the orders I got was almost 20K. And I had a variety of orders. Some of them were 3,000, some were 5, some were 10. But it was a huge blessing because the one for 20K, the whole thing was a game changer for me. It really changed my business in 2022. And thankfully, I had the same, it was like a rinse and repeat for 2023. Literally, I got a ton of orders back to back. It was a huge blessing and a game changer. In 2024, things slowed down quite a bit. Didn't get not nearly as many orders. And this year so far, I've already gotten about 4 or 5 orders. So it looks like hopefully this year will be kind of a repeat of those earlier years.
Amazing, Cheryl. And the reason why I thought this was important to mention is because when you start selling online or you just put yourself out there as a business owner online, wherever it is, social media, you're thinking about reaching customers, right? You're thinking about, but I mean, even though you were trying to prepare yourself to kind of do government contracting, the way you got it was just by being present online.
Absolutely. That's very true, Sandy. And I'll tell you, that's why it is so important. And again, having that website is really important. Now, the social platforms, they're great. They're tons of traffic out of social. No question about it. But having that basic website was for me the game changer. I believe because I'm quite certain that the Navy guy found me because of the ads that I ran and because the SEO, the basic work that I did in the very beginning stages. They were able to find me. And at that point, I'd had some reviews. So, and at the end of the day, what the government needs is they have a problem or they have a mission, they have a requirement, they have something that they need to accomplish, some goal. Yeah. That goal might be service based, it might be education based, it might be product based. In my case, it was a product base, and they just simply needed a vendor to supply their need. Oh, and by the way, I didn't mention it, but the way that the Navy uses these products is they use it for this particular base, because this is not sold all over. It's for a particular base. They use it to actually get around the base and make light deliveries. One thing I didn't mention is after I got that business in the early part of in the early part of 2022. So by the end of 2022, early 2023, I realized, I thought, wow, I've gotten this business and it's a blessing, but I don't really know a whole lot about what I'm doing here. I'm filling orders. So what I did at that point, I decided to reach out and look for a coach. And so I got on YouTube. I started looking around, and I found this lady named Dr. Kizzy Parks. And I just listened to her content, for a few weeks, and I really could resonate with her content. I liked her professionalism, and she was also extremely personable, and I just kind of connected with her online. So then I went to her Facebook group, joined it, and then I found out that she was offering a coaching course. So I took her coaching class, and that was a game changer for me too, because I realized that a lot of the work that I had been doing with the Navy was primarily just transactional. I was filling orders. Hey, and that worked because I was getting paid, and it was certainly a blessing. But I learned through Kizzy that you really have to establish a relationship. And in order to establish that relationship, I had to just spend time getting to know the different people. It was a little hard at first, I'll be honest with you, because some of the guys and the ladies were just matter of fact. They put a request in and you fill it. But I eventually learned how to be a little bit more personable and get to know the people. And then that allowed me to talk. We just had normal conversations. The way you and I are talking, we could have normal conversations. Particularly, it helped with the accounts payable people, because that's when I would actually be on the phone. A lot of times the orders that came through, or the solicitations, that was all done by way of email. So there's very little phone interaction with them. But I did get a chance to talk to accounts payable people, and that's how I was able to establish relationships. And that was a blessing, because actually what happened was last year, I thought it was kind of funny. I got this call out of the blue from one of the accounts payable reps, and they asked me, they're like, well, how do you want to get paid, Cheryl? And I'm like, I'm thinking, what do you mean? How do you want to get paid? And so they said, well, do you want to get paid by WAF, or do you want to get paid by credit card? And I thought, well, let me do credit card, because in my head, it's like, credit card, once the order is filled, and I submit the proper documentation, I'm going to get a phone call from a rep, and they're going to pay me with a credit card, and I'll get funds within a couple of days. That other system may take closer to 30 days to get paid. The other system, you don't pay those credit card processing fees. So the other system is actually better for me, because I save, between 2.5 and 3%. But you get
it takes longer.
Yeah, you get paid faster with credit card.
Got
So
it.
I have to go with the credit card route, and that's all well and good.
Of course, because you need those funds.
Exactly.
So, the reason why I wanted you to talk about this is because a lot of times as business owners, as even myself, when I, started selling my products, I'm like thinking about my customer, individual families, individual people, but your customer can actually be the government, right? Is that what you're saying? And I want people to start thinking about that as soon as possible, because a lot of times we're just so focused on getting this one sales here, two sales there. And the reality is that when the government buys, they're not just buying one, they're buying multiple, and they're always needing stuff. So like you're talking about building this relationship, it's so important. How do people start thinking about those things? Because I remember when I talked to you, I had no idea. I mean, I've heard about government contracting, but I didn't think that my product was something the government would want to purchase. And when I started talking to you, you opened my mind to like the possibilities of, wait a minute, I have children books. Yeah, and I have bottles. And I remember going on to SAM.gov and just doing a simple search of bottles. And I found that the government had purchased some bottles back in 2021, baby bottles. And it really told me like, wait a minute, there is things that can happen here. You can make things happen with the government. And I want to tell you too, because I remember the first time I was working with a school, and you were the one who was telling me about the POs and registering as a vendor. Like all this stuff was just words to me. And then I actually experienced it when I got a call from a school that said they needed several hundred copies of my children's book. I was like, okay, but I still didn't connect it as a government contract until they started telling me, well, you have to do the registration. I was like, wait a minute, this sounds like what Cheryl was telling me. And then Cheryl, I got the purchase order. I'm like, yeah, this is what Cheryl was talking about. So I say all this to say that, you know, I know a lot of times as business owners, we're looking to like work with stores, whether it's local stores or online stores, but the government is also a customer and they buy everything, right? You sell them bicycles, they buy children books, they buy services. Tell us a little bit more about those things that people can start, maybe even registering, like you said, on SAM.gov to kind of see all the different opportunities that are available to them as a small business owner.
Yeah, that's great, Sandy. And yeah, you're right. Well, first, it's not just SAM.gov is federal, but then you have your state and
Yeah.
your county, and your city. You have your local governments also. So, like you described, you were able to get business from probably city, maybe local school
Yes.
systems, right?
Hmm.
And that's amazing, and that's we have to keep our mind open that when you own a business, you're not limited to just your consumer. We call that B2C, right? Business to consumer.
Hmm.
Well, there's business to business. You can sell to other businesses. You can sell B2G, business to government. So when you have that basic business, your legitimate registered business
Hmm.
and a web presence, you now have a platform to sell to many, many markets. One thing you can do is you can look for something called a NAICS code. I believe it's
Yeah.
NAICS.
Hmm.
That's a huge database. You can go through there just to get your NAICS code for your specific thing. So like if you're selling baby bottles, there's a code for that. I mean, you can also just look through that list to see of all the different codes that are available. And one thing that I learned in working with Dr. Parks, which I didn't really learn that when I took those courses, years ago, just because I sell electric bikes or bicycles, I'm in the sporting goods niche, that doesn't limit me to what I sell to the government. I can sell anything. Like, as long as I can provide a vendor for it, a supplier, as long as I can fulfill that contract, I can sell it to the government. It's
Yeah.
about, again, it's about servicing the government and supporting them to help them achieve their mission, their goal.
Hmm.
So you don't have to feel locked in. And at one point, I did kind of feel locked in because I'd reached out early on to a lot of experts, and a lot of them told me kind of stay in your lane, stay in your niche. And I thought, okay, that's fine. I'm in the bike and sporting goods niche. And but in the back of my mind, I thought, well, I don't know if I'm going to stay here, because there are all these other opportunities. So I say that to say, just be open minded.
Hmm.
Because you can partner with other vendors. Like if I found a contract for bottles, I don't sell bottles, but I know Sandy does, and she knows about bottles. She's made these before. She's actually created her own product line, so she knows
Hmm.
way more than I do. So it would behoove me to work with Sandy, to get that contract filled. And so, yeah, that would be my whole point. Like if you're a new business, just be open minded. Um,
Yeah.
I'm going to quote Dr. Parks here. She always says everything is possible. And I thought about that because it's super encouraging, because it helped me to understand it really can be a game changer with the government. You get one order, it can be a game changer. Let's face it.
Yeah.
You can watch some YouTube videos and you'll see testimonies of people who have very little experience, like nil, and they got contracts for a couple 100,000, 500,000, 1 point so million, then they're in these multi 7-figure contracts, or they're in these 7-figure contracts, all because they just kind of stayed the course.
Yeah. Definitely. And as you're talking, what came to my mind is like, you talked about coaching, you talked about getting a coach to, get better at these government contracts and, you know, uh, networking. Can you tell us a little bit about, because I think that sometimes in business we get so caught up in the product and trying to sell it that we lose sight to all the different other ways that we can grow our business. And so I think that coaching is important, finding someone that can coach you on the things that you need done, but also networking. You talked about reaching out to one of the people at the government, the Navy, talking to them. How has that helped you learn more, and how has that contributed to the growth in your business? Like getting out of your comfort zone. Like some people are afraid to do that in business. I think that it's not an option. You have to. You
Yeah,
have to connect and you have to network, because that is part of growth.
absolutely. There's a couple of things on that one. For one, I think about, you and I we started years ago in a huge community. We had paid for a particular to join a particular network. It's a huge marketing network and a lot of resources. But then and that person encouraged us to get an accountability partner. So I remember posting on Facebook in the group, and you responded, and we connected, and we just thank goodness that you and I
Yeah.
connected, and we were both true.
Right.
We kept our appointment. Like you say, life happens. If we missed it, was okay. But we've been doing this for a while now,
Yeah.
right? And over the years, I watched how you have grown. You have grown from having this one concept of selling the baby bottles, and you had your books, and now you have really grown. And a lot of that was because you started networking.
Mm-hmm.
You used your platform, and you had some local contacts who referred you, and then you got PR, and people would find you via PR. And before I knew it, it's like people know about Sandy because she's out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you inspired me to network. And so because at first I was mostly just online, and I really didn't go to too many in-person events.
Mm-hmm.
Well, last year, I got invited. Actually, I started going to a local, this is one of the counties here in Georgia. I went to one of their events, and then I met one of the ladies that worked there, and she invited me to be a speaker. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was actually able to present earlier this year at the event. And from there, I got some leads and, got a contact. So this was a county event. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It was a government opportunity where they're basically promoting small business. And the point being is that has really opened up my eyes, because now I realize if I go out and do these speaking engagements, even though they might be free, a couple of things are going to happen. One, I'm going to network. I'm going to meet other like-minded individuals. I'm going to learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
And I might even get a contract or get a client out of it. So I can't really emphasize enough. It's so important to network. It's great to be online. It's great to do social things, but in person still works, And another point I wanted to make too about the government contracting side, there is a lot of free information, and I would encourage anyone to start with the free information. Watch videos, take notes. You can actually Google if you once your business is registered on SAM.gov, you can actually Google small business. I think they're called small business specialists for like
Mm-hmm.
you said, the VA, and you can actually find a list of the contracting officers that you can actually at that point you can this list may include their phone numbers and everything, so you can actually give them a call and just introduce yourself and
Mm-hmm.
tell them what you have to offer and see what opportunities they may have, because it's really more about finding about the opportunities and their needs. Is less about so much about what you have to offer. It's more about finding about what they need, and then hopefully there will be a match. But what you'll find is, number one, once you make these phone calls, you'll get comfortable talking, and you'll find out that some of the specialists are super helpful and some of them may not be. But don't get discouraged, because there's always those out there they'll bend over backwards to help you get the information that you need so that you can learn about the different contracting opportunities that are out there.
Yeah, definitely. And so when you talked about the program that we joined together and how we met, that was a paid program. That was a paid membership, I believe. And I think it's important to emphasize here how being in a space where other people are trying to grow um, can help you grow faster, right? Because they're asking the right questions, they're connecting you to the right people, the resources, they're connecting you with accountability partners like us, like we have. Um, Tell us a little bit about, how you help people, because I know that you have some programs where specifically when it comes to like the website, I think that you have a great way of seeing people's websites that help them see what they could not see before. Like you help me see some things. Um, what are some ways people can work with you if they, let's say right now they're working on, optimizing the website, whatever it is, how can they work with you? How can they connect with you if they wanted to do something like that?
Okay, sure. So I do a couple of things. I do operate the online store. And so because of my experience of having worked with Shopify for several years, I do offer coaching to prospective store owners. So I'm particularly focused on the high ticket side of Shopify or e-commerce selling, I should say. So if you're thinking about launching a store, I'd be happy to talk to you about what that looks like from a high ticket perspective.
Tell
Another
them
thing,
what high ticket means.
yeah, certainly. So when I think about high ticket, when we think about e-commerce, you can buy something for $10, you can buy something for $50,000, right?
Hmm.
I remember back in the day, a long time ago, this thing called eBay Motors was around. And so people were selling cars on eBay, right? You could actually buy a car on eBay. And then eventually, then eventually became a norm, right? You could buy cars online, right? Well, today you can buy tiny homes online.
Mm-hmm.
So those are obviously high ticket versus like T-shirts and certain jewelry items maybe, or would be considered low ticket. Of course, some jewelry would be high ticket as well. But that's basically the difference. So in the business model that I use, I basically become an authorized reseller for the products that I sell, and I focus on high ticket. So if you're thinking about going that route, I'd love to talk to you about that. I also, I've been in the space for many, many years. I actually started out, as I mentioned early on, building websites.
Mm-hmm.
I used to design websites. I've been a webmaster, and I've done a lot of things in this space. So I will occasionally take on clients who are looking to build a website.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the things I do as well. If you are thinking about hiring someone on Fiverr, that's great. Except you may not really understand how to pick a good consultant. If you just need some guidance and hand-holding to get through that process. I'm actually working with some clients right now. They're in the medical space, and they don't really have a background in technology at all. So what I'm doing for them is just really kind of providing some guidance for them, because they are experts in their space, but they don't really understand the tech side of things so much.
Mm-hmm.
So again, there's different ways to work with me. You can find me on that side of the business is Vertronics.com. I'll spell that. It's V like victory, ERTRONICS.com. Or you can find me pretty much online at allaroundebikes.com. You'll find all around e-bikes on Instagram and as well as Facebook.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll make sure to have the website on our interview here. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us, Cheryl? Is there anything that you would like to share about what's coming up for you?
Yeah. Well, I'll just tell you, honestly, I thank God for my career over the years. It's been a long time I've been in this space. I can remember starting out, being a stay-at-home mom too. When my kids were young, they're adults now, of course. But I started all this stuff a long, long time ago. And I was, blessed to be able to have a work from home situation where I could work with my children and earn some money as well. And also, I was also able to do contracting and kind of have a schedule that wasn't too bad. But in the back of my mind, I always wanted to be a business owner. I can remember when my little boy, at the time he was a kid, and I remember him coming home one day saying, "Mom's a businesswoman." And I just kind of chuckled at that because I thought, how cute. He's like 7 or 8 years old. And he says, well, he knows his mom's a businesswoman. I just thought it was cute and funny.
I
But,
love that.
yes, it's kind of funny. But, thankfully, over the years, through the grace of God, I was able to continue this journey. So,
Yeah.
so if you're a mom who's in business, or you're thinking about it, and if it seems overwhelming, if you really feel that the Most High has put that on your heart to do it, I would say go for it, because over time you'll learn the things that you need to learn. Business doesn't happen overnight. No matter what you see on Facebook or Instagram about the people who are making 6 figures, in 2 weeks, it's probably not real, right? They don't tell you the backstory. There is a backstory. I mean, I can spend some time talking to you about the things that didn't work out the way I wanted them to work out. But my whole point is just stay encouraged, get educated, use the free resources. And when you feel that those aren't working for you, do your due diligence and find a coach, someone who can maybe help guide you and provide some guidance. That would be my comments on the whole topic. I mean, it definitely, if you're led to do business, do it. Don't let the jargon get in the way. Just build your knowledge and do it.
I love that, Cheryl. Thank you for sharing that perspective. As a mom, I would love to ask you also, was there a time on your journey where you felt like, because I know for me, sometimes I'm like, wait a minute, I, left full-time work to do all this stuff. And when the challenges arise, you're like, was this the right decision? And I think that as a business owner, you may ask yourself that question several times, on the journey. What has helped you continue to pursue this when your kids, especially when they were younger? Now that they're older, what helped you keep going? What helped you not give up?
Okay, that's a good one. So business is definitely tough.
Yeah.
it's not like it's, you have a vision, you have a dream, you you pray about it, you execute. Some things go out, some things work the way you want them to work, but again, there are challenges and little bumps in the road. You just have to accept that as that's a part of life. um I do keep going. I mean, I do pray about it. I do. I want guidance. I want to make sure the decisions that I'm making are good for me. Um, and that's just what I would say. I mean, I just think it's something that you do if your heart is, if you're willing to make the commitment. It
Hmm.
requires massive commitment. Then I say go for it, and just understand that it is a journey. You're going to learn. I'm learning today. I have coaches today. I have people that I reach out to and I talk to. I'm always looking for guidance.
Hmm.
There's certain things I understand about my business. There's still areas where I need to grow. So I think as long as you're open-minded and you're willing to roll up your sleeves and put the work in, it is for you. If you're looking for a quick fix or a quick win, it may not be for you, because that's not reality for most of us.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point. I think also in business, if you're focused only on while profits is important, if that's your only driving force, you may give up quicker because sometimes it takes a while before that can happen. And you had mentioned about how people are making, they'll tell you they're making what, $10,000 a day, all that stuff. But they're not going to tell you that they probably spent $10,000 in ads to
Exactly.
make it back. So these are the things that they're not going to tell you, but you learn it and you realize that. For me, I think the bigger mission was my ability to be home with my kids. And I just didn't like the rushing when I was working outside the house. Like I was just always rushing, worrying. And I just feel like that was not a good combination. I wasn't showing up as my best as a mom.
Mhm.
But the challenges I have in my business, while they're difficult, sometimes very depressing, however, they have helped me grow. I've grown, and I realize it's because of the challenges that I had to grow.
That is so true, Sandy. And one thing too that you mentioned, and it's really about serving others. I was away over the weekend for a road trip, and it gave me and I didn't take my laptop with me. I always take my laptop, but this time I thought, you know what? Nope, I'm not doing it. So I shut down for the weekend. I checked
Right.
email, but it's so funny because yesterday when I got back, I was super tired. But I remember as I was working toward the end of the day, I like what I do. I genuinely like what I do. Now, is it tiresome sometimes? Yes. But I really enjoy helping people, particularly in this area of technology.
Hmm.
And because I like what I do, it makes my work fun. And
Yeah.
I didn't start out knowing a lot about electric bicycles.
Hmm.
Actually, I had never even seen one before. But over the years, I've learned about them. And now when I talk to people, I can talk with some level of confidence. And I know that I'm helping people.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, yeah, the money is great. And of course, I'd love to, be making huge amounts of money so that I say, okay, that's great. But at the end of the day, when I look at how I end my day, oftentimes
Hmm.
it's like I know I've helped somebody. Like I had a customer yesterday, he needed a repair shop, and I had referred him to two shops. And he's like, well, I tried one of them and that didn't work out. And I said, hey, you know what? There's a Facebook group that I'm in. Let me get that information and I'll send it to you. And I could tell he was super grateful. Like
Hmm.
I'm not going to win from getting any, I don't get any business out of that, right? I'm just simply saying, hey, here's this Facebook group, join the group. I post in there. You can learn about other repair shops. And in my head, I thought, okay, you're just doing what you do because your goal is to, at the end of the day, help somebody.
Yeah.
And yeah, you'll get sales out of it too. But at the end of the day, you can feel good knowing that, yes, you have accomplished a goal of having the business. And along the way, you're helping people meet their needs.
Definitely. That is such an important point. There was someone who said, I think that the profit you make, the money that you make is a byproduct of service,
Mhm.
right? So service first. Definitely. Cheryl, thank you so much. This has been such a great interview. I hope, someone can benefit from the conversation from tech to selling to the government and the inspiration that you've provided. Thank you for your time, and we'll talk again soon.
All right, Sandy. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate you inviting me here. And of course, I appreciate our friendship and how you have helped me along the way.
Oh, thank you so much, Cheryl.